All right, good morning, everybody. We are going to be riding to the birthplace of Texas, which is Independence, Texas, and also Washington on the Brazos, which refers to, I guess, like Washington, D.C., but on the Brazos River. And let's go ahead and get started here. And also, we are going to be talking about one of the most important gains of marginal gains. And it's the Japanese concept of negative space, also known as M-A. It is a lot of fun to look into, and also extremely relevant in endurance sports. So let's cut through this little spot right here. We have a tailwind on the way out, headwind on the way back. It's going to be 4.5 to 5 hours. Let's do this. At sunrise, had a cold front come through, so the temperatures dropped a little bit. It's actually cold starting off, which is very unusual for around here. Let's try this. Gravel bike powers activate. We're going to turn right here in a second and get out of this headwind. Should be really nice. So I've broken up my fuel into 2 bottles for 5 hours. And the strategy that I've learned that works really well, first bottle is a 2-hour bottle. And when I stop to refuel for water, it's much more likely that this will be empty than the other bottle, which is a 3-hour bottle. And so I can just fill this one up with water. All right. So, marginal space allows you to use the things that are important with a whole lot more ability and appreciation. And already, we have an example, this wide shoulder here on the right side of the road. And it makes riding down this road very relaxing. And when we get up here and take a right, we lose it. And you'll be able to sense how much more stressful it is. But also along with that, taking pauses, like at the stop sign, There's a car back. Gives you a moment to kind of think. What have I forgotten? Do I need something? Okay, so now we're on a 60-something mile an hour road, which you know people drive 65 to 70, with virtually no shoulder. This road's really great, and unfortunately, it's like the only connector road to get out to better roads. So cyclists ride it because we have to. But it is scenic because it's got wine, it's got a sense of space, it's nice and hilly and curvy. So, to be a happier endurance athlete, we should gravitate to places to train that have a little bit more space, and then you'll be calmer and actually can focus on your workout because you're not being stressed. And one of the best analogies is writing in a book. You'll notice the edges of the paragraphs don't go all the way to the edge of the page. But just imagine in your mind if words went all the way to the edge of the paper. We would consider that almost unreadable. So the margins, which gets back to marginal gains, but a different kind of marginal gain. Allow you to get a handle on the page without obstructing what you're looking at. There's a Texas flag, got a tailwind. So a big trick is to use technology. People think that we use technology, to be better and more advanced and all that. But honestly, most technology is done to allow us to be more ourselves. Those are the best technology cases and successes. Humans evolve on a scale of thousands of years. And you really can't change people very fast. So a good change in technology is something that allows us to be more ourselves. So, one of the reasons the gravel bikes took off, this change in technology, was it allows us to ride with more margin. Something that the Japanese figured out a long time ago is this really wonderful aesthetic. So when a car's coming up behind me and I'm out of space, say I've got a road hazard in front of me, I could get over there in that gravel. If I'm on a road bike with 23, 25 millimeter tires, that's a crash waiting to happen. But on a gravel bike, I can get way further over. And then that gives me a sense of calmness and relaxation. And also with the rear radar behind, same thing. I can tell that a car is coming. And then have more time to get over. Okay, I'll be right back. I have a little bit of headwind right here. All right, we are coming up on the town of Milliken. I'm going to name the little towns as we go through them. We're going to do something fun. Milliken is a grid of all gravel streets. I say this all the time. This town used to be 10,000 people. Now it's like 100. It's an old railroad stop from the 1860s. That when the end of the railroad stopped here for a while, and then so there was a town, and then the end of the railroad moved further north, and so this town kind of died out. So along with the rear radar, you know, I have bike computer, all this stuff, all this technology that you can use to give you more space and to be more human. But you have to be thoughtful about it and realize after a while, you're like, man, this is more of a pain than a benefit, right? Oh, we're gonna have a train here. So if the benefit, you know, you want to make the benefit worth it, you got to think of ways to make the pain of making it. Most with electronics, it's charging everything and updating everything. So one way is to put all your charging stuff in one area instead of scattered about. Here comes the train. And another thing I've noticed is if you get things with really long battery life, if that's one of your parameters that you enjoy or target, then you don't have to charge it as often. And it helps a lot. I want you to notice something if you can, if it's not too loud. You see the railroad track flexing right there? That's space. Here comes the box cart that plays in. And the rock, they use rock that's kind of chunky and weird shaped. So it has spaces in between. So when the train goes over it, those spaces can compress and reopen and compress and reopen. They don't use round rock. They use angular, chunky rock that doesn't fit together perfectly. And then, on purpose, they'll come along every once in a while. You'll see them lift up the track and churn the rock to revitalize that space in between. Kind of like how with soil you want a little bit of air, and why earthworms are good for soil. This is a long one. Okay, in case you couldn't hear me a second ago with the train, as it was going over this part of the track right here, you could see the track flexing up and down, and that's on purpose. Always look for a second train if it's a double track. And the rocks that they put under railroad beds are angular so that they don't fit together perfectly, so it creates lots of space in there, and then they flex because they have that space. And it gives the train kind of suspension. And then every so often they'll come with maintenance vehicles and lift up the tracks and churn those rocks again. They don't use round rocks or square rocks that fit perfectly. They use odd-shaped rocks. It's really fascinating. But another great use of space. And like I was saying with bike computers, right? You always say, are you training the computer or are you training yourself? So this influx of technology, you should use it to make your training easier, not harder. And as humans, we have a requirement for so many calories per hour, so much hydration and electrolytes, right? So you use the computer's technology for that, to allow you to optimize the human with every 15 minutes, take another sip of fuel, you know, with the power to make sure you're not going too hard when climbing a hill. A lot of the other stuff doesn't matter, you know. And this use of space isn't just a Japanese thing. This is all humans really enjoy this. You go to Alfred Hitchcock movie making, where your mind, you know, War of the Worlds, where they did it over the radio, your mind can create a much better monster than any special effect can. Because it's in your mind. If it's in your mind, you can believe it because you're already believing it, right? But to achieve that effect, you don't overdo, you don't jam in special effects. All right. Let's get on some pavement here. Going back up here. So before I go on yapping too much about non-sport stuff, or things that take time to implement, there's something that you can implement immediately that you will notice huge benefits from. And it's to create the marginal space for better training by carrying extra fuel and water with you. Just a little bit more than what you think you're going to need. And this is because if you carry just enough, the exact right amount, the human mind has the tendency to try to hold some in reserve. True power and wealth is having a little bit more than what you need for everything in life. It reduces stress. It's a margin of safety. So I noticed a huge improvement in my training. We got a road party going on up here. When I started carrying a little bit more fuel and water, because what I noticed was I was trying to, as I was getting towards the end of a ride, I was trying to conserve what I had just in case I needed it. And then that was compromising the workout and my recovery and the next day. So let's say you carry an extra half an hour's worth of fuel than what you probably need, an extra half an hour's worth of water than what you need. It's just like carrying a spare tube, you know? And think about it. When you drive a car, you don't wait until it's running out of gas and sputtering to go to the gas station. You go when there's like quarter of a tank. And that's just in case there's an emergency or whatever. And then life is good. So, for example, this is supposed to be about a 4.5 hour ride. So I have 5 hours worth of fuel. And I probably won't even, it takes a lot for me to drink it all in the first place. Let's get out of this wind. And then I have a water stop halfway, and then I know of another water stop on the way back. 2 of them, actually. If I get in trouble, I can top off with more water. And one problem is fuel is so expensive if you buy it. But if you make your own for cheap, all of a sudden it's just pennies on the dollar. And water is essentially free. So basically just using table sugar and Gatorade powder in bulk and sodium citrate in bulk. I bet you this ride cost me $1 an hour in fuel instead of $5, $10, whatever, if you buy, you know, name brand stuff. And what's crazy is the ingredients are all on the package. You could just make it yourself, you know? And then another thing is I noticed there was stress with me trying to cram in and talk as fast as possible and be as efficient as possible. With videoing because the batteries run out. The money I saved on fuel I spent on buying a set of spare batteries. And now I can talk more relaxed and actually think about the important thing. And negative space isn't just about space, it's about time in Japanese culture. The Japanese concept of it. Space and time are intertwined. So another good use of your technology, really good for Ironman and long distance gravel biking and long distance trail running, is if you plug in the route, you make a route of your course and plug it in, and then one of the fields you show on your bike computer is time left to destination. And what that does is it helps you dole out your fuel and pacing. Because you can sit there and go, I've got 3 more hours. Am I going to be able to push this hard for 3 more hours? I'm already struggling. It is incredible. It makes all the difference in the world. Another one is if you're riding with a tailwind, you sit up and let your back breathe. Use that extra space. And it's for when you need to be in the arrow position, you're not worn out, or you need to get down lower, you're not worn out. From being crunched down low. Okay, here in a minute we're going to cross the Brazos River. Oh, so yeah, there's the most effective time to do things, right? And over the period of a long time, if you do things at the most effective time, you pedal a little bit harder uphill, you coast on the downhills. So you get in the arrow position when you're riding into the wind. If you got a tailwind, sit up. And over the course of a long ride, your back will much appreciate it, and you end up going faster anyway. It's pretty cool. And sitting up helps you digest your food instead of being crunched down in the arrow position. And that's an effective use of a margin. Okay, we'll be back as we cross over the Brazos River. All right, so we're coming up on the Brazos River. And this bridge used to be very narrow, very dangerous to go over because it had a hump and you couldn't see over the edge, over the top. Very dangerous bridge. It's a really good demonstration of what better margins can do. Just leading up to the bridge, having the rumple strip right here is nice. For whatever reason, it disappears when you get to the bridge. But look at the space now over this thing. And it's built with both minimalist architecture, but with wide space. This river's so powerful, it actually blew out this bridge, if you can imagine that. This thing is stout. There's some sandbars, see if we see any alligators. Try to turn so y'all can see. See any. So that was Washington County line. Now we're in Washington County, which again, birthplace of Texas. 99% sure. Named that after Washington, birthplace of the United States. There's a loud truck. That was something else, wasn't it? Okay, you can see on this sign up here, if you take a left, it's a mile or two down the road. Washington, it's really Washington on the Brazos, is the full name. And it was either there or in Independence, where we're going to go next. Where the Declaration of the country of Texas was signed. It's about 90 miles west of Houston, if you ever want to come out here. Kind of near Brenham, home of Bluebell ice cream. So this extra wide shoulder that's now here gives us access to what you're about to see. I've never videoed this from the bike. Just epic road riding and gravel riding. Starting right about here. We used to drive to that park, and it's a 30-minute drive. And then we have to load the cars up, get there, and now we have access to it, just riding here by bike. It's really nice. Okay, we're a little bit into a long climb up to the appropriately named Bluff Road. Another marginal gain that people don't think a lot about is not training with others most of the time. There's definitely a use for training with other people. People have this effect on you to make you go a little bit harder, a little bit faster. You know, every group ride turns into a race. But if you want to really step up to the next level, training by yourself so that you go the correct effort to improve you is where you're going to find just so much improvement. And the concept of space and buffer and margin, and by the way, Ma also translates to the gap between things. Is separating yourself from other people and giving yourself that space so you can think. You know, there's mob mentality, which leads people to do the incorrect thing. Group think. And then great example is when I was riding with Kai out here, or just riding with him in general, because we're riding together, we're constantly egging each other on and goosing each other. You don't even know you're doing it. And when I wasn't getting any faster. I was getting slower and worse, and I was more tired all the time. And I considered it worth it, because he's at a younger age where a lot of hard work can improve him, formative years. But when he left to go off to college, and I started riding by myself again, I could start climbing this hill at the power that's good for me, because I've got some distance from other people. And a good climbing wise, like 250 watts. And with him, I was hard, easy. And over a long ride, that's very counterproductive. Gaining elevation a little bit. And within just a month or so, my FTP started going way up, much more relaxed, recovering better. And it was surprising. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know how much riding with somebody else was affecting me. Totally worth it, because he's my son and everything, but it's just an observation. And then obviously the space in between that's really handy is rest days. And using that to recover, right? We have a left turn up here, because you work, but then you need a little bit of space to recover. Oh, there's a deer in the road up ahead. So here's another example. The negative space in this bottle tells me how much I've drank. And that's why I use clear bottles. Let's go, deer. Mom and a baby. But I need the negative space to see how much I've used. And I'm using the timer on the bike computer to see how much I should have used. And because I'm training by myself, I'm not pushing the pace and forgetting to eat and drink. All right. Let's take a break from recording and keep making our way uphill here in a second. All right, it is hard to see, but there's a hole up there. That's the false top of this climb. Feel the wind picking up as we get higher. Still just doing 225, 250 watts. Really good training. But another thing that's interesting is the Japanese art of flower arranging, which the name escapes me at the moment. But the point is to have some empty space, and then you put a flower arrangement in the middle of it. And then when it's all done, you sit you sit down in front of it and appreciate it. But then the real trick is it's got space all the way around, so you can actually walk around it and use that margin, that gap, that empty space to appreciate something from all angles and let it really breathe, to take up the space with itself. You can't appreciate something unless you can really observe it. Okay, we are at the top. Oh, this is gravel. We're not going to go down this road because I need to save time on the out and back. But I might be able to zoom in with the camera, and that ridge line of trees on the other side is the other side of the Brazos River. That's where we came from. And we've ridden this way all the way around. And then now we're up here looking back to where we were, giving ourselves some space. All right. I'm going to check on some things. And yeah, I'm over an hour and a half in. Almost hour and a half of there we go. That's the appropriate amount of fuel and water. And this big old tree. All right, we have some really great views coming up, so hang tight. All right, we're coming up on something that's kind of entertaining. If you grew up in the city or in the suburbs, I grew up kind of like rural-ish suburbs, way outside of big cities, but still the suburbs. And then you go out to the real countryside, you'll come across kind of the Shel Silverstein experience of where the sidewalk ends. And you always ask yourself, where does a highway actually start? So we're on a county road, we're on Bluff Road right here. And then this edge, there's a plantation house up there, old one. Boom. We are now on State Highway. They call them farm roads here, FM, farm to market. But anyway, they're state highways. And it was just like that. Do you think it would be more like ceremonial or like, I don't know, a roll in? Like a Tour de France time trial start or something? But no, it's just bam, highway. It's pretty cool. All right. We're about to pick up some speed. We are now at officially the highest point for a while. And it's about to get crazy with some downhill gravel. So y'all stick tight. All right. For us to go downhill crazy on gravel, we got to go uphill a little bit. When I built my first gravel bike, I did not have the gearing for this. And it was a little intense. And also I'm going to switch batteries when we get to the top here, to make sure I don't run out. I'm getting a little low on battery on the camera. And also, we're going to switch over to talking mostly about the latest in training that I've been doing. Triathlon training, running and stuff. Ran 9 miles yesterday, 9.5 with River. I need to adjust my shifting here. I got mechanical shifting on this thing. And because I ran kind of easy, taking my time, and ran with 2-liter water bladder with plenty of electrolytes, I'm actually feeling pretty good today. So and then also swam maybe 8,000 yards last week. I think I swam 2 days, Wednesday, Friday. And we're getting close to 2 hours. And so finishing up my 2-hour bottle. Actually gonna swap it around. Well, no, there's a little bit left in there. We'll swap it in a minute. And we go over here to this fence, B for Brett, and swap out the battery on this camera at a nice space. So beautiful up here. Certified wildlife habitat. All right, let's swap out some camera batteries and let's do some crazy downhill shizzle.